Well, everyone, I am so excited to have with me Ally Love. You know her from Peloton. You know her from the Brooklyn Nets. You know her from the Love Squad. Ally, I feel like you are the sort of person, I'm seeing you on my screen, and it's not the first time I saw you. It's not the first time today. I saw you this morning for 45 minutes of intervals and arms. Very good class. So first of all, welcome. Second of all, how are you? Like, what's life like for you right now?
Well, I have to say, Jason, one, it is a privilege and honor to be speaking to you. I am a huge fan of yours. I know that some of the content that you've been creating, I'm always kind of like hungry and I want more. Second, I have to pay you another compliment. I mean, I'm just here for compliments for you. You didn't know that, but to pay you another compliment, because actually most times when people take our rides, especially intervals and arms, they always say arms and intervals. So I have to give you the biggest compliment, because I know you're a true Peloton member, because you said intervals and arms. And to get to your question, how am I? How's it going? I feel like I'm radiating positive energy. I feel like we've been all vibing on different frequencies for the last year and a half, but I'm vibing really high tonight in the sense of like, I'm just here. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this conversation. And I mean, of course I get to talk about Peloton, and I get to talk to Peloton about you. Like, I get to tell everyone about you because I've been quoting you in my classes, actually.
Well, thank you. It's nice to have our little mutual admiration society going on here. You know, and I do. It's fascinating to think about you, and I'm interested to get into this over this last year and a half, because something obviously really dramatic happened in the world, but something really dramatic happened with Peloton, and I dare say with you personally, you know, sort of elevating in many ways. And I think part of what's so fascinating to me is this connection that you and others were able to make at a time when we were bereft of the normal human connection. Tell me about that and what it was like to kind of live through it.
Absolutely. I think where we are today, as we look back, you know that Peloton is the intersection of technology, media, and fitness. And so our drive is not only to show up for our members, but also to continue to innovate. At the time and the turning point of things changing, where, you know, everyone had to shelter in place, Peloton, our production team, the magic, I don't know how they did this, but this magic showed up in the sense of there was a box outside my door and they're like, that's a studio. That's a studio for your living room. And right here in this living room, you see this beautiful bike right here. In this living room, when we were supposed to be socially distanced, I had 25,000 people live in my living room. And what really was the beauty of that is not only connecting with our community, not only holding space, but two things happened. One, Peloton as a company was able to pivot. We were able to band together, as we always have, come together as an organization and say, how can we be of service? How can we continue to serve our members, especially in a time like this? And so we were able to pivot and say, you know what, you may be accustomed to studio on 23rd Street, or, you know, maybe, you know, we're going into the new studio and what that looks like, but we're going to bring you content from our homes. We're going to let you in. The second part of that, outside of being able to pivot, is kind of what I just mentioned. It's to be of service. It was an honor to be of service. I think that many of us know what it feels like to wear the burden of community. And in that burden, there's beauty. And what I mean by that is that as leaders, we always say, and I say this in my class often, you know, when things get hard, I often raise my hand. And to see that not only did I raise my hand in wearing something that was called the unknown, we didn't know how long it was going to last, what was exactly going on, but the level of humanity, and this is something that keeps me so grounded at Peloton, the level of humanity that show up in my fellow instructors and fellow coworkers, a part of this organization, a part of this company, really stepped in and was able to shine through, in the sense of we all wanted to be of service. We all wanted to be there in the moment to say, how can we just be the shoulder to lean on? How can we give you a heart to bottom section and then tell a joke right after to make you laugh? How can we give you what you need, or what you may not know you need in that moment? And so it was an interesting time, but I will say one for the books in that it was an honor. The ability to pivot was uncanny when it came to the company, when it came to the innovation. And then the sheer, sincere honor to be of service to our community is something that I wear proudly. We know that that can, like I said, be a burden, but the fact that humanity steps in and says, you know what, our community's first, and how can I just show up, was something that we wore on our chest alongside that P that we still wear to this day as a community, as an organization, as a company, as one Peloton.
So I want to go back a little ways, and I won't make you do the whole Ally Love origin story. And for those who have been fortunate enough to ride with you, you know, we've heard stories here and there. One of my favorites that I remember you telling on a ride that I've taken a few times is like sneaking some chicken wings into church and like eating them, because you got hungry during church. Listen, I'm a 3-year-old. I get that. But I do wonder, as you think about how you present yourself in that way, there is this realness and this authenticity about you. Is that just sort of how you've always been, or was there something that Peloton unlocked? Like, tell me how you approach the gig, as it were.
Well, I love that it's so funny when I hear some of the stories that I tell, because I'm ultimately in the moment. I'm having, many of us, you will ask, many members will say, is there a script? Did you rehearse? No idea. The fact that you know that story, I know I haven't shared it but once, probably a couple times, because it's a real story. I remember going to church and I would wrap chicken wings in aluminum foil because church was so long when I was a kid, and I would unwrap it and I would eat it. But sincerely, when it comes to kind of like creating this content and being in the moment and showing up as myself, there's twofold. Peloton unlocks it in the sense of creating space for all of our members, including instructors, to show up as themselves. They want us to be ourselves. But two, it's ultimately a social responsibility. And the reason I say that is I am a private person. You may not know a lot about my private life, hence when you say those unique stories, they stick with you a little bit. But the reality is that I am transparent. I let you know when I'm not feeling, my best self. I let you know when days are hard. And I think that that's what makes our community so special, is that when I'm showing up, I'm not trying to be anything. When I say I'm a boss, I'm a boss. I'm not trying to be anything less than Ally Love. And that means the whole spectrum of who she is. And in that, I think it's relatable to many of our members. I have bad days. I have not so good days. I have the unknown. I have overwhelmingly positive days. I have days where I'm a little like, oh my gosh, I'm so giggly today. I show up and Peloton allows us to do that. Not allows us in the sense of, oh, you have to do that or it's prescribed, but they allow us in the sense of, this is your stage. We don't want you to absorb Peloton. We want Peloton to be a part of you. That's it. And so I get to clip in or step on that mat, and however I'm feeling that day, I show up and I make sure that I'm transparent. I'm always honest with our community. Two, I'm approachable. I know what it feels like to be in a room where you're like, do I fit in? Do I belong in this class? Does the instructor see me? Oh my gosh, this is too much or too little for me. I make sure that the training program, the music, just as soon as you open the door, you feel like, you know what, I can relate to something, right? It's an approachability. And I bring in those funny stories that maybe you can relate to. They stick with you. Maybe it wasn't chicken wings at church, but maybe it's like you walk around with a bag full of snacks, or you have kids, like you mentioned, that are always hungry. So it's making sure that I'm relatable at all times. I'm not taking myself too seriously. I'm approachable in the training program, in the content, and the thoughtfulness of my overall packaging of the class itself, from music to roadmap. And then, of course, again, Peloton not necessarily unlocks, but they offer that platform for us to just show up and be the things that we are.
And so what is it in your mind? Because, part of what we're trying to get to is, kind of where we are at this fitness moment and where we're going. And clearly, this pandemic has changed us all in existential ways. Obviously, that goes without saying. And yet, I do wonder how it has changed your view of fitness. You approach it in a very holistic way. You're not afraid to talk about mental health. You're not afraid to talk about different modalities of fitness. How has it changed you in terms of how you offer the world of fitness, and how much of that is sort of permanent, as it were, and how much of it is in the moment?
So I think that fitness is always changing. And I love Peloton. I don't love Peloton just because I work there. I love Peloton because I'm a member. I also have 2 bikes. I have a tread. I have the app. I have my mom's involved, like my family's involved. They're celebrating milestones. So sincerely, because I'm a member. When it came to what changed over the last 18 months or the year and a half that we've lived through, what's changed is the one thing that's been constant is that there's always going to be change. And us at Peloton has always known that. Change is inevitable. And we were ready. We're on the tips of our toes at all moments, at all times. And so being able to be a part of that and say, you know what, the fact that we can pivot, the fact that we can change, knowing that we get to kind of decide what fitness looks like. We are literally the leaders of this. And I don't say that arrogantly, not at all, but sincerely by default, by results of what has happened for us. And I think that one of the things when you talk about the sticky factor, we know, and all of us, I mean, me too, not every day do I want to go to a gym and work out. Not every day do I have the time. I'm not going to say I'm busy because I don't subscribe to busy. I'm a productive person. Every day I wake up, I look at my schedule, and that's just the right amount, right? I make sure the narrative that I'm telling myself is always positive as much as possible, but I don't always have the time or the inclination or the willpower to go to a gym. Knowing that I can hop on bike, turn on the app, and start getting a workout in my own living room will never change. That's something that all of our members, including myself, we lean into. Whether the availability to step out there in the world safely is there or not, lean into the fact that I do have a productive day and I want to do it on my own time. So that has always been there. The thing that I think that's going to stay forever, and I think this is the most important part, and this is the thing I get super excited about, so if I get giddy, don't judge me, is community. We not only created community, but what happened in the last year and a half that blew my mind is that we cultivated community. That we were able to band people together that have no idea what your real name is, where you may be. You're no stranger in the sense of like, I see you on that leaderboard. I may not have known you at first, but I see you on Ally Love's ride, or I see you on another instructor's class, and I'm on with you. I'm not alone. And that sense of cultivation is incredible. And cultivating community is different than creating. Let me just tell you this. Creating community is what we talked about in the beginning. Peloton, we did that. We knew we can hold space. We knew we can put out amazing content. Cultivating community is saying, we know we can create content you need. What do I mean by that? Take it a step further. We have our awful one. We just announced today. We're doing literally a music fest. What is one of the things that many of us have been jonesing for is to go out safely and just vibe with our favorite artists or bands and just really listen to some good music, to be together. And we were like, you know what? Let's come together. Let's offer our members that. That's cultivating. That's keeping our ear to the street. That's keeping and leaning in when we're at the table to say, what do our members need? How can we show up for them? How can we make sure they're connected with each other? And there's a feedback loop, right? That's cultivating. That's communication. And I think that's the constant, right? The change is constant, but in the change, that communication, that cultivation of community is something that you can't recreate. That was a big part of what's come out of the last year and a half. We knew it was there, but we were able to unlock it, again, by being of service, like just staying curious, staying open, having conversations, keeping our ears to the street because our members are important. And that to me is so special. And these are the stories that I think I would tell my grandkids of like, there was a moment in time that you will never remember, but I can tell you about. And it was that I was a part of a community, millions strong, that were leaning in with each other and experiencing things that they ultimately needed because they said they needed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that and sort of what we have experienced, what we are experiencing. And you, you alluded to this briefly about, whether it's on the bike or on the mat, you guys have experimented a little bit. You've experimented a little bit introducing bar. So one of my colleagues was telling me about taking one of your bar classes. How do you think about that? As someone who, and anyone who's taken your classes knows that, you've studied physiology, you understand the body, you understand, essentially the mechanics of what people are trying to do and what you're trying to do. How do you think about that in terms of creating a wider range of content across fitness, especially as people are looking for that next thing or more things?
So I will say, I came in, and I share this proudly, I came in at Peloton at the time where we were, I think it was just 11 instructors. My audition was 15 minutes long. I had never been an instructor prior. I took a certification, so I was certified, but I never really leaned into this being like my career path, right? Career trajectory. 15 minutes after the audition was done, I got on that bike. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just up there and I'm just like vibing. I'm like, hopefully they like this. Obviously, it went well for me. They offered me the job, and being a Peloton instructor is a coveted position. I say all that to say, when I look at where I've come from and the opportunity that I've had, being able to create a ride like Hidden Hills, I created the treatment, I presented it to our team. I was able to create that for all instructors, right? Same thing with the recovery ride. Same thing with bar. We were looking at what do members need. I was like, you know what? I think bar is really important. I created a treatment, I presented it. And when the time was right, our team was like, let's do this. When it came to, again, our training programs, overall month to month, when it comes to marquee series like Sundays with Love or the Feel Good Ride, things like this, I was able to put a personal touch, leaning in and listening. But the most important thing when it comes to different modalities, how we continue to innovate, and to your point of just like, when is it the right time? When do we know when to add something in, take something away, create, innovate? It comes down to this for me. diversify your fitness portfolio. We talk about your portfolios financially and you want diversification, and we always say that, but it's exactly that. We want you to diversify your fitness portfolio, not just in the class or the modality, in the duration, in the training itself, in the intensity, but also in the instructors. That's why we make sure that we have a variety of different personalities, a variety of different people. And so I think when it comes to the creation and content creation and the content ideas and what's next and how we look at things, is taking a step back and making sure that if a member walks in and they love cycling, they love clipping in, it's like, what else can we offer them? Maybe they don't love a different, what we are offering, but how can we continue to keep in mind what could supplement that training program so that they, yes, are physically healthy, but two, that it serves them mentally, that they're finding joy in their bar class when we're dropping it low, or they're finding joy in that Pilates class. And so again, it comes to that conversation, it comes to that listening. But I always come back when I think of myself, again, as a member, is diversify your fitness portfolio. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're offering you the different modalities that you can buy into, that you can step into, that you can be a part of, to make sure that you're finding joy. And it's refreshing. I mean, many of us, when you stick to one modality, you do it for years. I've been running for years. I love it. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, when I take a strength class that's a little bit different, I find joy. I find out things about myself. And so it encourages our members to stay curious about themselves, to honor the fact that they can stay curious about their greatness, but two, that we're making sure that we offer them the variety that they don't know they need or that they want, and keeping all of that in mind.
All right, so I got to ask you, maybe this is getting into like the Ally Love secret sauce of, creation. How do you pick your music? Like, what goes into that? Because I think anybody who's clipped in or gotten on the tread is always fascinated by the choices and how that comes about, because it does feel very personal.
Yeah, it is. I will tell a little secret. I haven't shared this before. During the last year and a half, a lot of the playlists that I shared were very much nostalgic to me because I was missing home. So it was a lot of Miami or music that I had listened to with my family or that reminded me of certain vacations. So I did take a more of a personal spin in the sense of, or I would say like more of I was a little selfish in that selection because I was missing my family, and to know that my one Peloton family was going to show up. Peloton family was going to show up and we get to ride together. I was able to kind of relive those memories in my head, even though I didn't always share that. But when it comes to just normalizing, like normally making a playlist, I think it's all about making sure the vibe is right. What do I mean? It's like when we have a road, I don't want you to be climbing a hill, like you're climbing uphill and the music is not climbing with you or it's not motivating you. So I want to make sure that the playlist simulates what you're experiencing in the road, that it can give you that extra motivation outside of my words or outside of what you may be feeling physically or mentally or spiritually, so that music can support it. And so most times I have a roadmap in my head. I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm like, okay, like I teach in 2 days. I have a 30-minute country ride. I know what I've taught on Sunday and Monday. I want to make sure, again, I'm diversifying the intensity to make sure if you're taking class with me, physically, I'm taking care of you. And so I create this roadmap in my head. I don't necessarily know the songs I want, but I can feel how the music enhances that roadmap. When we are going to push a little bit more, when we're going to climb, when it's going to be a little steeper, when it's going to be a little flatter. And so I make sure that that's a part of it. And then another thing that's really a priority of me, I always talk about this, is making sure that we lean into not only diversifying fitness content, but also your fitness portfolio, but diversifying the content consumption in general. Making sure that the artists that I play are diverse, right? We want to lean into BIPOC, LGBTQ plus members that are part of our community, that are creators, that are artists. And so I often start to plug and play with that a little bit. And then I'm a fan of the decades. I love going through the decades. I feel like that's the best entry point. Everybody has a song. They're like, oh, this is the 70s. I love the 70s. Or this is 80s. And so making sure I diversify the decade offering too, so that there, again, is an entry point. Everyone feels seen. Everyone feels heard. And so the secret sauce is that I take all these little things, and it's a matter of seconds at this point because I've been doing it for 4.5 years. I take them into consideration, and I make sure that it's strategic, it's thoughtful, and most importantly, y'all know when you show up, it's going to be a good time.
Right. So, you mentioned that your audition, which is a fascinating insight that I didn't know before. You've talked before about being a Knick City dancer, and obviously that was really important. I want to talk in a minute about your work with the Brooklyn Nets, but help me understand how you build essentially, I mean, Love Squad is obviously a manifestation, but even the broader, like Ally Love Inc., the career path, because as you say, this wasn't something where you said, all right, I'm going to grow up to be, an indoor cycling instructor. Like, help me understand how you map that out and sort of the choices that you've made along the way to sort of build this pretty holistic and candidly pretty ambitious portfolio of your own.
Yeah, I always say that I'm forging this last generation. I think we come from a time, and no shade to my mom because she's my mom and dad because they're epic. But, when they were growing up, it's like you have this one kind of idea of what your career is, one career trajectory, and it's vertical, and you're going to climb that ladder. And I think what I realized is when I moved to New York from Miami for university, I was like, well, I really love a lot of things. And so in two parts of how I found my career, the first thing is I say, it's something that I often talk about right now, and I still use this, is getting back to the basics. I have this series on IGTV called The Basics of Bossing Up. And we talk about these things that we often forget. We think we need to think somehow out of the box all the time. And it's like, no, that's okay. You can come back to the basics. There's power in that. And so I lean into a Venn diagram. What am I good at? What do I love to do? Where do those things intersect? That's how I found my purpose, right? It's like, okay, I might love to do something, but I might not be good at it. So it's making sure that the intersection and knowing what those things are. And so what I found was at the core of the intersection, I knew that I love people. I love socializing. I love conversation. I can do this forever. Hence, you can see I can talk forever. I love it. I'm not shy about it. And so the first part of it, when I was looking at my career trajectory, is to say, I know that, I want to lean into my intersectionality. I want to do multiple things. I want to be thoughtful around them. And so I created a Venn diagram. What am I good at? What do I love to do? And where do they intersect? And I can tell you right now, it's 3 C's. Camera, it's everything that I do is live on camera, right there. The second C, conversation. Love conversation. You and I was thrilled to talk to you today. The third one, community. We talked about that earlier, not only creating, but cultivating community. I really found an intersection at the core of everything that I was good at and that I love to do. They had 3 things in common: live on camera or on demand, community and conversation. The second part of that, when I started navigating the career and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, I've always believed wholeheartedly, and still to this day, to find your career one of 2 ways. Either you've known since you were a kid that you were going to climb that vertical ladder, which is nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying one's better than the next. Or you lean in when people tell you, trusted people tell you what you're good at. That's how I found my career. That were people around me that said, Ally, you know what you're good at? You're good at speaking. You know what you're good at? You're good at going first a lot. Like, you actually have that, like these little soft skills that we never think are good enough, or they have to be hard skills for us to be successful. It's like I was tapping into those soft skills as well as those hard skills. And I leaned into those around me, those that I trusted, who were saying, here's what you're good at. Because oftentimes we can be a little bit critical of self. Me, no, I'm no exception to that. And so being able to do that and lean into what people thought I was good at was important. And that's kind of how I found my way to Peloton. It's like someone said, you know what you'd be good at? You'd be good at this thing called Peloton. You've heard of it? And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of it. I've taken a few classes, but I'm no instructor. They're like, hold up. Peloton's not hiring just instructors. If they were hiring instructors, yeah, that's not who you are. They're hiring people. They're hiring relatable people. They're hiring, again, that intersection of fitness, technology, and media, the host that comes on, that has the endurance, that has that star quality, right? And so that's kind of how I found my way. It's those 2 parts. And I still lean into those, Jason, sincerely. I go back to my Venn diagram. What am I good at? What do I love to do? Making sure I understand the intersection. And then sincerely, the second part is leaning into those people that I trust to say, hey, this is what you might have forgotten. This is what you might have forgot. This is what you're good at.
And so one of the most interesting pieces of your portfolio, because I'm a huge basketball fan and I appreciate, as you said before we started this conversation, you're wearing Hawks red. I wish the Hawks were playing the Nets right now. But that's also a sort of fascinating manifestation of that Venn diagram, it feels like, and gives you a window into a broader range of people in many ways, the sports world. Tell me about that experience and sort of how it fits in. And then I want to talk a little bit about New York.
Yeah, I have to give a disclaimer. While I am wearing Hawks red, there's nothing against Atlanta or the Hawks. I am a Brooklyn Knight, right? I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan. I'm the host of the Brooklyn Nets. That's where I reside. And I will say the reason I'm wearing this top is because it actually matches my Peloton, the team new champion line that came out. So this is a little ensemble that you can't see fully, but because I have a whole Peloton movement happening, right? But in terms of the Brooklynettes, it all stemmed from, I moved to New York. I grew up, my mom played basketball in Miami. My dad loved football. We grew up watching tennis. Venus and Serena was a big household name, still is. My mom is always texting me to check the scores because she's always nervous. But we were a big sports family. And so when I moved to New York, the one thing that I knew is that I was here to be a dancer. I went to Alva Ailey. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from Fordham University. And one of the things that I always knew is that I love basketball. It was a part of who I was and a part of who I am currently. And so I found out that the Knicks City Dancers were having auditions, and I was like, you know what? I'd love to be a part of the NBA again. Fun fact, I was a Heat junior jammer, also wearing Miami Heat red. We want to keep the red going. I was a Heat junior jammer when I was a young kid because my mother loved basketball, but we couldn't afford tickets. And so when you're a little dancer, you get, nosebleeds, but you get the tickets up top. And so my family could come to the games. I also was a ball girl for Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras, which was like incredible. Little baby Ally Love. I was a ball girl. We get free tennis tickets. Again, come in. At the time it was the Ericsson Open. Now it's the Miami Open. But it was one of those things where I've always had it a part of my life. So when I came to New York and me trying to figure out who I was and find a home, I leaned into basketball. I leaned into the NBA. I auditioned with 500 other girls to become the coveted Knicks City Dancer, one of 22. And I fell in love with being a part of the experience. And more importantly, Jason, and this is something that I have prioritized in my life. Obviously, we know the NBA is male dominated, from the coaches, from the front office, from the back office. The only time you see any diversification in gender is usually in the entertainment team. And so when I became a dancer, I was like, you know what? I want to be a part of this change. I know that this change is going to happen in an organization like not only just the Knicks, but also within the NBA. When the Brooklynettes moved from Jersey to Brooklyn, they were looking for a host. I had started taking hosting classes. I sent my reel to everyone who would listen. I was like, I will host your kid's birthday party for free. I just need experience. The Nets called and offered me the job. I had zero experience outside of training. I went from talking one-on-one to folks, telling them that I needed a job hosting, to speaking to 18,000 fans. Here's what's so special. As a woman, a part of the Brooklynettes, as we know, the Brooklynettes, we're still building legacy. We don't have the legacy as the Atlanta Hawks or the Sixers or the Celtics or even the Knicks. We are building our legacy currently. In order to say that I was a part of the beginning stages of that is beyond, an honor. But more importantly, to say that I'm a woman that steps onto that court and heals to this day for 7+ seasons, 41 home games, playoffs, preseason, where I get to entertain the fans, where young kids, young women, young girls, young boys, non-binary, gender-conforming folk look down and say, oh my gosh, if she could do it, her big curly hair and high heels, a part of the NBA, then I can do it too. Representation is important. And so I take my position as maybe, some people call me the t-shirt girl. That's fine. But I take my position as the host of the Brooklynettes seriously, because I get to represent a city. I get to represent a team. I get to represent a borough. I get to represent a culture as a Black woman on that court and say, this is what the NBA looks like. The NBA looks like me. The NBA, not just entertainment. The NBA looks like me. This is your overall experience. And the Brooklynettes gave me that platform, from our owners of Claire and Josiah to just our incredible entertainment team to our front office. Like, the fact that I can be a part of that narrative has been incredible. I didn't know that that's what I was going for when I was just trying to find a home in New York. But I knew that sports was a part of me because that's how I grew up. And so to be a part of that change is incredible. And I go from hosting Brooklynettes games to now hosting the morning show for the last 3 years with the U.S. Open in Queens, and so it's been a dream, and I love it, because we know that. I hope you know that life is like a game, right? Life is like a championship game. Every day you're waking up wondering if you're gonna get the W today. Some days you get the L because it's just a tough day, but every day you're waking up with that mentality of, I'm gonna be my best. I'm gonna show up at the top of the key. I'm gonna start shooting. I'm gonna give it my best. I'm gonna run the X's and O's. Some games, some days you're victorious, some days you're not. Some days you're in championship, mentality, and you're winning by design, right? Winning is a habit, like Kobe Bryant says. Some days, again, like Mayweather said, in practice, you took the L. So I think for me, it's recognizing that I get to live this life with the reminder that we can change cultures, we can change things, but more importantly, that we can show up and give our best.
I will say, just as an aside, before I ask you my last question, that I was taking a ride with you the other day, and your true basketball fandom came out because you made a side comment about talking about practice, and you sort of, I felt like you almost winked at the audience, and basically it was one of those, if you know, you know, kind of moments that solidified you as a legit basketball fan. So well played, Ally Love. So as we wrap up, I got to ask you about New York, because we've been talking a lot about it, and you touched on something that I think is really interesting, and I think about it as someone who's not from here originally. So many people who are watching this, live in New York but are not from here originally. What happens next for New York? You get such an interesting insight, I think, as a resident, obviously, as the host of the Nets, as a Peloton instructor, as an entrepreneur. Where does New York go from here, especially as we sort of come into this next phase?
So, what's incredible is that New York is going to do what it's always done. Not only is it a place where you can survive, but you can thrive, but it's going to move at the rhythm that it goes. The rhythm of New York is unique to New York. And so I think that when I was experiencing the city coming out where we were safely able to go on the streets, it's like New York is a city that most people say, oh, everyone is so mean, or they have the meanest people. That's not a fact. The reality is that people are direct to the point because we respect your time. We value that time is currency, and we value you. And so most times when we're like, get out of the way, it's for your own safety. It's us respecting your time. You got to keep it moving. But, New York is going to do what it's always done. I think that it's going to keep its rhythm. It's going to continue to be true to itself, and the fact that it's going to be a place where we're going to continue to create dreams. Some dreams that are going to be bigger, some that are going to be, infectious in its community, in its society, some that are just going to just blow our minds. And I think the fact, sincerely, this is what I think of, to be completely candid, Jason, is we have our Peloton Studios New York. We are going to literally change the course of the rhythm in New York. And the reason I say that, it's the epicenter of where our members, as we grow, get to come. And it's going to be their first encounter of what New York looks like or feels like. And they're going to feel that rhythm. They're going to feel that pace. And they're going to feel the fact that, yes, many people thrive and they come here. But more importantly, there is like heart in New York. We are New York strong. We are New York together. And while we might have that reputation of getting straight to the point, no, it's because we value you and we value your time. We will always care, and we will wear our heart on our sleeves. That's why it's a heart and I love New York. That's why that comes here. That's why that's our iconic symbol, is like, I love New York. You love it because we love you back. And so while I am from the 305 and I represent being a part of New York and being here, I do say that I walk with that rhythm. It's the rhythm that brought me here. It's the rhythm that stays. And Peloton is going to change the course of that. And we will continue to innovate and be of service and show up. So yeah, come on to New York, feel the vibe. We're alive. We love you. We get straight to the point. We direct, but we love you and we got your back.
Ally Love, what a treat. I've been really looking forward to this. And as I said to you before we started, many people were very excited for me to talk to you. So it really was a pleasure. I love seeing you on the leaderboard, and I will be seeing you again soon, and can't wait to be in studio with you before too long. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for the time. Those of you that have stuck around to the end, thank you for your time. Once again, we value your time. We value you. It is always a pleasure. Thank you so much, Jason.
All right. Well, my thanks to everyone who put all of this together. This was really fun to dive into the state of fitness, where we are going here in the great city of New York and beyond. So thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time.